Playing Dredge makes you feel like you're leading a simple fisherman's life, until a lack of sleep changes that reality into one of a college graduate who hasn't yet adjusted to the sleep schedule of a working adult life. According to Google, Dredge is a horror, role-playing, fishing, action game that was developed by Black Salt Games. The story is this: you are a fisherman who has crashed his boat and you are currently working to pay off a new one that you've purchased from a village nearby. While helping the village people, you encounter Lovecraftian creatures which are made worse if you stay out late at night. Will you survive the open waters, or will you become another snack for the creatures of the abyss? The story is good enough that it's intriguing with all of the hidden plot lines. However, I think the game is more targeting people around the exploration aspect of the game. It's a simple but fun take on a fishing simulator. Here are the menu settings. Dredge supports mouse and keyboard and controller. Beware though, if you use a controller, you'll get this warning basically telling you that the game is mostly playable with your controller. Here are the platforms you can play on, all the regulars are there. And for those of you who for some reason game on a Mac, this dev on a Steam forum said this, so if you really want to play on a Mac, harass the devs. The art style is extremely unique. It's like painted assets with low poly environments that really complement each other really well. They did a lot with a little, and because of this, all you need is an NVIDIA 450 GTS, which is essentially the Homo erectus of graphics cards. The game flows like this. At some point along your fishing journey, you find the collector. The main story of the game is centered around the collector and finding relics that he wants. I would say that the game is split up by each relic, kind of how games like older Zelda titles have you find a dungeon, acquire an item in the dungeon, and use said item after dungeon to unlock the next part of the game. In Dredge, the order isn't mandatory, but the game is a natural progression. Each relic has its own puzzles to be solved and mysteries to be uncovered. You can fish at fishing spots, sail to the spot, push F, time the green bubbles in the minigame, and boom, you caught a fish. Sometimes the minigame will give you yellow bubbles. These yellow bubbles get you a trophy fish, which is just worth more than the normal one. In order to fish, you need certain gear for certain parts of the world. You can store the gear in your inventory in special designated slots. There are fishing poles that allow you to catch fish in different parts of the world. There are nets that allow you to catch fish on the move. Engines make your boat go vroom faster. Lights will decrease the rate at which your panic rises. And lastly, there are pots. Drop them and collect them later to catch crabs. Your boat can, however, only store so many items, so you must play inventory Tetris. And if you're really struggling on space, you might have to get a smaller fishing pole or other equipment. In order to get equipment, you have to buy it. You can make money by selling fish to the fishmonger or treasure to the trader. Some equipment needs to be unlocked before you can purchase it. You can unlock equipment by researching them. It costs research points, which you can get from quests, exploring, and random fishing places. The boat also has its own upgrades, such as more hull, fishing pole, engine, or light slots. These upgrades require you to find materials such as wood or metal to unlock them. There's a day and night cycle in the game, where certain fish only appear during one of them. You can rest at docks, which allow you to set the time to any time. The big mechanic here is that time only advances when you move. At night, there's a special mechanic called Panic. It is the eye in the top middle of the screen that appears when you are in the dark for too long. The more this eye goes up, the more the horror part of the game comes alive with random rocks appearing and monsters coming to damage your boat. If your boat takes too much damage, you'll die and reset at your last checkpoint, so save often. If you take damage but not enough to die, you can repair your boat in most towns. However, if one of the damage markers appears on equipment, that equipment will no longer be used until you repair. There are passive skills in the form of books that you can activate by reading one, and when you've sailed around long enough, you have read the book. This reading of the book will unlock the passive. Quests are called pursuits in this game. They have a fancy board. You can find messages in the world in forms of bottles. You have a map where you can place markers to help you keep track of all the activities you've done. There's an encyclopedia where you can look at all the different types of fish you've seen in the region. You have a radial menu of active skills that you can perform, such as turning your lights on or a horn. There are more fun skills as well as you progress. There is no damn multiplayer, so you'll be fishing in solitude. There's cosmetics too, such as changing the color of your boat's flag. And as every third grader knows, the color red makes you go faster, so that's the one you want. There's some pretty sweet exploration aspects of the game, like look at that whale. However, along that, there are also some frustrating game mechanics. Sometimes you barely hit a beach or a rock and you take damage. Sometimes when you really think you lined up the green bubbles in the fishing minigame, it doesn't count. And during your panic levels, it's extremely hard to avoid certain situations where rocks just spawn in front of you. There is DLC called the Pale Reach, which we haven't played yet, but it looks like it introduces an ice region and a brand new place on the map. We might make a video on just the DLC, so comment if you want to see that. To recap, Dredge is a very chill single-player exploration experience. The controls feel smooth and the game has a nice progression. Even if you don't enjoy fishing simulators like I usually don't, you may enjoy Dredge just as much as I did. On our patented 0 to 1 scale, we rate this game a 0.84 out of 1. If you like this no bullshit review of Dredge, please sail your mouse pointer over to that sub button and click it. Comment how big the biggest fish you ever caught was and what type it was. And lastly, I know that I'm just fishing for likes here, but could you please like the video? Thank you, good night, and don't forget to reapply the thermal paste in your GPU once every 2 to 3 years.